Now, this is all stuff, just my opinion, by the way. And if you don't like it, it's okay. They can't fire me. But to make this a whole lot more fun, I kind of sneaked into Ryan Davis's budget, and I stole the entire company marketing budget. I spent it all on one amazing computer-generated image. You ready for this graphic? Spielberg wants this one. Sam Raimi wants this one so bad. Okay, you ready? Here it is. Ryan Davis has a small marketing budget, by the way. The reason I picked this character here is this is a way for you to keep track of what I'm going to share with you. If you're taking notes, I encourage you to draw a picture like this. This is representing you. Make it big enough that you can label the body parts with various attributes. There are certain things you can control and certain things you can influence so that the world that is so unknown in the future will be something you can handle and you can manage. The first one is going to be one of the legs we stand on. This is called self-knowledge or self-awareness. Self-knowledge, self-awareness. Who do we spend more time with than anybody else? Ourselves. And yet we really, in general, are not very self-aware. After I sold books the first summer, a young man who was a second-year dealer that summer, Sam Wee, said, Dan, have you read Man's Search for Meaning? I said, no, what's that? He said, you need to read it. It was written by a man named Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was a psychologist in Vienna, Austria in the 1920s and 1930s. He was not just a psychologist, he was a very successful one. He was highly respected, he was very wealthy, part of Viennese high society. Viktor Frankl was also Jewish. And when Hitler's Nazis swept through Austria, he was arrested along with his wife, his children, everybody he knew, and shipped off to various detention centers, work camps. He had to be shipped off to arguably the worst of them, a place called Auschwitz. In Auschwitz, odds of survival were stark. Out of 100 inmates that went into Auschwitz, only 7 ever left. The conditions were so horrible, about 90% of the people that got off those train cars were killed the day they arrived. The others were put to work under the most brutal, inhuman conditions of all. Frankl heard that his wife had died in a camp in Germany. Heard that he'd lost other family members. He'd just essentially lost hope for himself. But one day, as a trained psychologist, he became aware of some of the people around him that seemed to be so weak physically, but day by day, there they were. Day by day, there they were. Others who seemed healthier wouldn't wake up one morning. They were gone. He quietly began to ask them questions. He discovered something pretty amazing. Every person that survived had a reason strong enough. They refused to die. Viktor Frankl did not want to die. So he developed a very powerful reason of his own. He said, I must survive so I can write a book about what happened in this horrible place. He was a logical thinker. His reasoning was simple. He said, if I don't survive, there's no reason to think anybody will survive, and the world will deny this ever happened. And friends, shockingly enough, in the United States of America, more than 40,000 people vehemently deny this disaster to humanity called the Holocaust ever happened. Frankl did survive somehow, some way. When he was liberated, he did write eventually the book called Man's Search for Meaning. If you've not yet read it, please do. If you've read it, please read it again. I recently did. The insights in the book are all about self-awareness. They could influence almost nothing in the camp. All they could control was themselves and things that they did. It's really interesting what he said. When we can no longer change a situation, because there's nothing they could change in the camps, we're challenged to do what? Change ourselves. So the reason I'd like you to be thinking hard about this is that you can spend your life blaming other people, feeling like a victim, and being frustrated, or you can spend your life saying, nope, I need to change myself in this situation. Throughout my life, I need to continue to grow. It's one thing to read about that place. It's another actually to be there. Maria and I had a chance to go to Auschwitz last year around Easter time. Unspeakable. Catalina, thanks to you and Robert for taking us there. Unspeakable. How do you develop more self-knowledge? Well, first of all, do exactly what you're doing now. Anybody that ever knocks on a single door gets insight into fear like they never had before in their life. Anybody that knocks on a single door and somebody lets them in the house has an elation they never experienced before. It's amazing the self-awareness you can develop. But also spend time consciously thinking about why do you react the way you react. You might be able to get some good coaching and advice from somebody that is not related to you. That's very important. Somebody that loves you too much can never be objective about you. Let them tell you about yourself. Without great mentorship, I definitely would not have even made it through college, let alone be standing here with you today. Develop self-awareness consciously through a lot of effort. The next leg we're going to stand on, of course, is not self-knowledge, it's what? Other people knowledge. In case you know other people dealing with a cold right now, pretty soon I may become Kermit the Frog. But we'll do the best we can in the meantime. People knowledge. How many of you like people? Duh, you do. But if you think about the people you spend most of your time with, isn't it people in your peer group? It's your friends. Yeah, I really dig those people. Now, older people, they're kind of weird. Don't spend time with the older people. I got news for you. One day you'll be one of them, one of us. People knowledge, understanding human nature in such a great way. Let me give you it real simple. What if I could teach you how to be better at people if I only took one movement of one finger? Who'd be down and try that? All you do is move one finger, instantly become better at dealing with people. You ready? Can I share it with you? Use that one finger to do this. We love our devices. Oh, I love you. You're beautiful. I love you. Oh, my life, my images, my priceless self. These are amazing things. They're incredible things. They're supposed to connect us. But more and more as we study devices and how they impact people, they're actually dividing people from people. A study was done, interesting study at the University of British Columbia, in which simply the presence of a telephone on a table, even if it's turned off, results in a measurable decrease in interest in what the other person had to say. How can you become aware of somebody else if you're constantly listening for your alerts and your chimes? Anybody ever been in a very intimate situation, maybe on a dinner date with somebody, and their phone goes off, and you're trying to pour your heart out to them, and they say, hold that thought, I'll be right back with you. Oh, this is awesome, hang on. What? Although they're supposed to bring us together, they often separate us. I would encourage you at some points to go phone free. That's the greatest thing about being on the book field. You use your phone for your business. You don't worry about what's going on in the rest of the world. You work on your business. Anybody ever lost their phone? I've lost my phone twice. Once it was a robbery. The second one was also not my fault. Gravity was the cause at that time. And I went in a place where the water goes around and circling down a hole in the bottom. Gravity was the reason. Well, I wasn't going to go after it at that time, folks. And when my phone went down the toilet, I said, I'm not backed up. My life, my appointments. I started to freak out. And then finally I had to say, Dan Moore, these didn't even exist most of your life, dude. Chill. So I didn't replace it for a while. I had the most fun. I walked around just looking at people, and I could actually see people. At least I could see the tops of their heads as they were texting others. I saw birds, and they were not angry. It was just incredible experiences of this stuff. So although the phones are amazing and devices are incredible stuff, always remember this quotation. Life is not lived in the glow of a monitor or a device. Life is not a series of status updates, and it's not about our friend count. It's about what? The friends we can count on. This sounds like some long-haired philosopher living on nuts and berries in a forest, doesn't it? What if I told you this was the chairman of Google? It's about people, it's about relationships, it's about understanding human nature. If you want to become better at dealing with people, become a keen observer of people. Learn to observe them. Here's a fun exercise. Anytime you're in a big lecture, you want to be off in the corner where Stephen is, look at people on the other side of the room that are having an animated conversation. Try to decide what they're talking about based on their body language, their facial expression. You'll always be wrong, doesn't matter, but you're becoming aware, you're paying attention to it. Spend time understanding people that are way different than you are. How many have grandparents that are still alive? If you do, count your blessings. Next time you have a chance to go see them in person, say, I'd love to come see you and just ask you some questions. Bring them some cookies or a bottle of Jack, whatever you think they're going to like better. And say, hey, when you were my age, tell me what's going through your mind. If you have great-grandparents, what a blessing that is. Get to know what your ancestor was all about. Get to know what those people felt. Spend time with people that feel totally different than you do. People from different races, different religions, different backgrounds. If you do that, over time, you'll really begin to understand human nature. Best thing in the world I ever did was knock on doors. You deal with so many people. And if you spend a little time thinking about what you learn from those people, it's powerful. One of our arms is going to represent something we call mental flexibility. What this is, to me, is defined as pretty simple. It's how quickly can we let go of an idea when we discover the reality is different. Simple example. Have you ever planned a weekend outing based on the weather forecast? And the weekend begins, what's always wrong with the weather forecast? It's always wrong. Even though anybody says, it's not supposed to be raining. Spend the whole day, it's not supposed to be raining. Well, I tell you what, I'm not the best at mental and emotional flexibility either. In fact, 7 years ago, Maria and I were in the country of Lithuania. Lithuania is 8 time zones away from Nashville, beautiful country. And it was election day in the United States. I went to bed around 10 p.m. that night. I was exhausted. In the U.S., it was 2 in the afternoon, watching CNN International. And CNN said, CNN now projects that tomorrow morning America will have its first woman president. Hillary Rodham Clinton will be president of the United States tomorrow. I said, that's kind of cool. I went to sleep, and overnight, guess what happened? This happened. Overnight, that happened. All of a sudden, I woke up and I said, Maria, what's this? And she said, I stayed up all night, Dan. He won. I said, no, he didn't. They said, I know what they said, Dan, but he won. And I was groggy or sleepy. I was in total denial that no, he couldn't have. We got in a car to drive from there to Estonia with our driver, Kaido. I said, Kaido, is there any English language radio available? Yes, one station. Turned on the radio to listen to the news. They're talking about Trump's surprise victory, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, Kaido, how close are we to Russia? He said, only about 100 kilometers. I said, well, there you go. They hacked the radio. It's fake news. It took me more than an hour to realize that what I thought was going to happen had not, in fact, happened. And that's okay. I'm just saying, mental, emotional flexibility is not very easy. Let me see if you're any better than I was. How many black lines do we have on the screen? 6. 6 black. Now, here's my question. Can you add 5 identical black lines to those 6 and make 9? Some of you are thinking, well, Dan, I've had time on my phone to verify. No, the answer is 11. Can you add 5 identical lines to these 6 and make 9? I only know one way to do it. It's this way. And so for those of you in the room that are saying, well, Dan, that's not fair. That's not a math problem. Did I say it was a math problem? Nope. Mental and emotional flexibility is harder to come by than we think it's going to be. But it's really important we work on and develop it in such good ways. How do we become better at this? First of all, become aware of your own inflexibility. Something not the way it's supposed to be, just say, cool, we're going to learn something different. How quickly can we do something different than what we thought it was going to be? It's powerful and important that we do that. Now, kind of the flip side of that is resilience, or how we react. So flexibility is mental, resilience is how quickly we react. Forecast is for sunny, it's not sunny, it's raining. Resilience says, let's go dance in the rain. That's what resilience is all about. Let me see how resilient you folks are. A little test of resilience. Everybody get really comfortable in your chair and cross your arms, sit back like this. Get totally chill, totally comfortable. Yeah. Feeling relaxed, feeling powerful and good? You look very relaxed. Cool. Now undo your arms. Put them back with the other arm on the top. How many had to have a do-over? How many had to actually start, okay, right, left. Hey, where's my arms? It's the weirdest thing, isn't it? And yet I know the human body is called bilaterally symmetrical, pretty much the same on the left and the right down the middle. But this is comfortable and this is not. Resilience is something like that. It's not always easy to be comfortable in a new situation. Only way I know to get better at it is put yourself in situations where you don't know what the heck to do. Like selling books door to door. You know what the heck to do, but you figure it out, don't you? The greatest thing you do gain from this whole business, you learn to figure it out. You learn to love yourself in the course of figuring it out. Really powerful, powerful skill. Now the brain box up here, how's our brain situated? And we all know the brain is the real executive of the body. And the brain is where the centers of learning occur. But I'm not going to talk about learning. I'm going to talk about a uniquely human characteristic. Humans are the only species on earth that can put things into perspective. Can all animals learn? Yes. In fact, how many of you have pets at home? Have they trained you yet? They sure have. Let's talk about animals and learning for a second. Let's suppose for a moment we're out in Africa, okay? We're in the jungle. DSL of the Year trip this year, they went on a great safari, a beautiful safari. So let's say that I'm a lion, and you're a lion, and you're a lion. I say, hey guys, you hungry? You go, yeah, me too. See that baby gazelle over there? I'll bring us some lunch. I head over the thing. Now, based on my vast experience hunting gazelles, most of them are left-footed. They're going to go the other direction. So I cut to the right. The gazelle, of course, goes the wrong direction. I don't get it. I go, hey guys, sorry, I missed the gazelle. Next time I'll be ready to cut either direction. You with me? Cool. Can you imagine a lion coming back and saying, hey, you know, I've been thinking about it. I'm really glad I didn't get that gazelle. It was just a baby. It was never going to have a chance to grow up and have its first deer beer or get a deer driving license. It'd never go on a deer date or go to deer prom. And, you know, besides, I've been eating so much deer meat lately, my cholesterol's through the roof, getting kind of a gut here. So I got a great idea. Let's go downtown, got this trendy new wine bar, eat something vegan, and have some Bellinis. What do you think? Who's down? My guess is that's not going to happen in a jungle near you anytime soon. Although all animals can learn, humans are the only ones that can put things in proper perspective. Perspective is the ability to look at something from a different point of view and see it differently. Things that at one time seem impossible and ridiculous at a later point are not impossible nor ridiculous. Who's ever been through something in their life they said nothing good can ever come of this? With the passage of time, something good came of that. We know that's what the ability to put things in perspective is all about. Become better at this. When we do this, not only do we learn a lot of stuff because we're exposed to so many things, but we learn something and then we spend some time, we reflect on it. What does this actually mean? Am I looking at this in the right way or am I looking at this wrongly? Then I can make a decision about what to do, and this decision will then lead me into a different form of action. Humans have that unique ability to develop perspective. How do we become better at gaining perspective? Well, here's a good one in political season. How many of you know people that feel very differently than you do about a political issue? And every time you think about that person, your teeth start to, right? Call them up and say, can we have about a 10-minute chat? What about? I'd like to try to explain your point of view to you in ways that you say, yes, you get it. That's really hard to do, isn't it? Because you want to start arguing. Nope. Until you can explain what somebody else believes in ways that, yes, you get me, you don't know what it means to take a different perspective. Learn to look at things differently because it makes such a difference in our lives. Our character is now turned around. This is her back. You notice it's spinning? Want to see it spin again? Watch. Spun again. Jeez. This is the back. The backbone. This is the values. The only area I believe we should not be flexible in are our values, things that we believe most strongly, but it's hard to do that. An example, who here believes firmly we should do our bit to help save planet Earth? Only got one of them, right? We all believe that. But have you ever failed to use a recycling receptacle because it's just inconvenient? Ever left the lights on longer than you should, the water? We all do that stuff. It's hard to live our values. Who's this individual? Nelson Mandela. Almost always when I'm with a bunch of students, so somebody says, yeah, Morgan Freeman, dude, I got him. He did play him once in a great film. Most of you are aware that Mandela spent a great deal of time in that cell, a place called Robben Island Prison, near Cape Town, South Africa. What's less well known is that Mandela was offered his freedom after 20 years in that prison, and he said no. Think about it, 20 years in a very small cell, solitary. Offered his freedom, he said no. I will not leave captivity until every political prisoner is free. I will be the last one to leave. How strongly would you have to believe something in order for that to become the next 7 years of your life? But because of that, Nelson Mandela broke the back of apartheid, a corrupt regime, a racist regime, created the very first democratically elected government in the entire country of South Africa. Values are very difficult to maintain. It's one thing to read about it in a history book. It's something else very different to stand outside that very cell, look inside and think about yourself in that mode, as the DSLs and myself, Maria, had a chance to do a few years ago. Values are very difficult to live by. Just ask this question of yourself. What are the things you're willing to live by? And is there anything you'd be willing to die for? Really difficult question to answer. Our person now looking at herself, this is what we call self-image, self-esteem. We've all worked on that a lot in our lives, self-image and self-esteem. If you get a chance to ever go down to Cartagena, Colombia, Get a qualified guide, go about 2 hours out of town. There's a village there called Basilio de San Palenque. In the middle of the village, in the town square, there's a statue of this gentleman here. His name is Bencos Biobos. He was the founder of that village. Bencos Biobos had been enslaved, and he escaped, took some of his followers with him, and built the village in the middle of the jungle. The Spanish found them and burned the village to the ground. Bencos and his followers built the village again. They burned it to the ground again. Repeatedly, this happened. Eventually, he was captured and he was executed. But his followers kept rebuilding the village so many times the Spanish army just finally gave up. And the King of Spain issued the very first decree of a free town anywhere in the New World to this particular town because of Bencos Biobos. And you might say, well, how could he do that? He was just a slave. No, he was not. Bencos Biobos was a prince. In his nation, Africa, he was a part of the leadership tribe. He was royalty. He was a prince. And the quotation you'll find engraved in that statue is a powerful quotation. He said, yes, we were enslaved, but we were not slaves. We're enslaved, but we were not slaves. This is so powerful and so important to understand about self-image. My first summer selling books, the first time somebody said, boy, why don't you get an honest job? Why are you out selling these books trying to convince poor people to buy something they can't afford? Why don't you get an honest job? I felt really low. I felt horrible. I said, oh, I'm doing a bad thing. And I had to think about the families that said, thanks so much for coming by. This is exactly what we need. Thanks for being in our home. This is so great. I had to realize I'm a door-to-door salesman. You know what? That's something I can be proud of. I can feel good about that because I'm making a difference to people. Anytime in life we think we're enslaved in a situation, we've already lost the battle. We're not. We can win the battle of self-image, self-esteem. Work on this consciously throughout your life, particularly in this area of self-talk. The longest chapters in my book are on self-talk and self-image because it's so important. Spend a lot of time in that. Finally, we're going to talk a little bit about purpose. Purpose. Kind of a cool subject. What is your purpose in life? I have no idea. But I can say that having been blessed with 68 years on God's earth, I've noticed something about people. Some people wake up each day feeling like there's a reason that they woke up that day. There's a purpose for what they're doing that day. They may not be able to enunciate it or elaborate on it, but they know there's a reason they got up that day. Some other people get up every day and they say, oh, well, whatever. It makes a huge difference in our lives. Think of that for a second. You wake up in the morning saying, there's a purpose for my life out there. Today may be the day I find it. Or the person wakes up and says, yeah, my parents should have been more careful. I'm a reproductive accident. When we understand there's a purpose for what we do, even if we don't know what it is, we get more energy. It's simple as that. We just get more energy. Energy is directly proportional to the purpose we feel we have in life, even if you don't know what it is yet. And by the way, there's no age in which you find your purpose. I read a story about a 9-year-old girl that found her purpose developing vegetable gardens for the homeless people. She's expanded a nationwide network of these. 9 years old, found her purpose in life. Another man, 85 years old, became a runner. Still a running coach now at 107, found his purpose when he was 85. But when you have that, you not only have more energy, you also have more commitment. And one of the greatest things you'll ever gain from this business is commitment. Commitment exercises the muscle called don't quit. Whenever they dissect a body, they look for that muscle. They can't actually find it because the whole person is about that. Commitment says, when I say I'm going to do something, I will do it no matter what. It's in short supply in our world, everybody. Keep demonstrating to the world that you can do this. We also develop a lot more of this resilience we spoke about, and ultimately a feeling of fulfillment and joy. True joy. Some of the most joyful moments I've ever had in my life were when I was the tiredest, the most exhausted. But it's a great feeling. Many of you have had that feeling in a sporting event, in something you poured yourself into. You couldn't even move after that, but you felt so great about what you'd done. This is what having a true purpose does for us. So I got a question for you. When do we finish working on all this stuff? Never. Hopefully we never do. My challenge to you is you take this information and make it a part of yourself. Think every day, how can I grow a little bit in this area? The book is all about that. At the end of every chapter in the book, there's some exercise you can work on. Follow yourself, get better at this stuff, because it's such an important thing to do. At this moment in time in your life, you're exactly where you should be. You're right where you should be. This is the place. Now's the time. You're the person. This is where you should be. The whole purpose of this book is about that, helping you figure that out. Kind of excited. The audiobook came out a month or so ago. And if you don't like listening to me, don't listen to the audiobook because it's me narrating it. Fun experience. And Trey's got to have a good announcement for you about this book in just a few minutes. I think you're going to enjoy that announcement. I'll give you a hint. It does not involve anything going on your account. So tonight, thank you for being with me on this journey. We've come a long way, haven't we? We went to Mars with Matt Damon, went 50 years into the future. Can I wrap up by going back to kindergarten? Is that okay? Anybody remember kindergarten? Dude, I remember kindergarten as the best 4 years of my life. I loved kindergarten. It was amazing. There's a man named Robert Fulghum that studied kindergartens, and he wrote a book on it. The book was called Everything I Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. He had no idea it'd become a worldwide bestseller, but it did. And all of a sudden, this poor minister is an international celebrity. Dr. Fulghum, come speak to our group, be on our TV, be on our talk show, let us interview you for our newspaper or magazine. He was blown away by all these requests. And at first, he found it kind of flattering. But then he said, no, this does not suit me. I don't want to be a celebrity. I just want to write good books. No more speaking ever. Requests kept pouring in. And finally, he said, okay, I'll accept requests from two kinds of groups, and that's it. I will speak to kindergarten children, and I'll speak to college students. When I read this interview with him, I said, this guy's so smart. It means he can go to a town like Nashville, and in the morning talk to kindergarten kids when they've just gotten out of bed, and that evening talk to college students when they've just gotten out of bed. He's always got a fresh audience. He started with the kindergarten kids, and they'd always make sure the kids were kind of wired, so they give them, Lorna Doones and Fig Newtons and apple juice. Kids are kind of stoked. And he said, children, I got a question for you. How many of you can sing? Now, how many of you have little 4- and 5- and 6-year-old people in your life? If you ask an excited 4- or 5-year-old if they can sing, what's going to happen? They're going to sing. Alana, our granddaughter, 4.5 years old, the most beautiful granddaughter in the world. Alana, you want to sing? Say, yes, let's do Frozen. A whole thing, all the way through it. Let's do it again and again. She can do it 15 times in a row. Every kid can sing. Dr. Fulghum says, great. How many of you can dance? The kids are all over the room. They're jumping up and down. They got him on the table, swinging him around, having a great time. That's amazing. One more question, children. How many of you can draw? They'd run to the board with a marker and they'd draw a straight line. He'd say, what'd you draw? It's a house, a dog, my mommy, and an apple. I made it for you. He'd have so much fun with these kids. Later that evening, he'd go to a big auditorium, a bunch of college students kind of like this. First 2 rows totally empty, everybody else sitting toward the back. He'd say, students, thanks for coming tonight. I have a question for you. How many of you can sing? You get a couple of hands going up, and people start muttering, oh, man, get your hand down. You only sing when you're drunk, man. How many of you can dance? Even fewer hands. Well, I got these new AirPods. I do this sometimes, Well, how many of you can draw? A couple of artists, maybe an architect, everybody else. No, man, I'm kind of text-based. I'm, kind of. Dr. Fulghum would look at this group of students and shake his head and say, what happened to you? What happened to you? When you were 5 years old, you could do anything. And now you're 20 and you can't even sing, you can't dance, and you can't even draw. Where'd you go? I think we all know. Somewhere between being little and being bigger, kids develop a brand new trait that they're not born with. Babies are never born with the ability to be embarrassed. Have you ever seen an embarrassed baby? No, babies only do 4 things. They eat, sleep, cry, and poop. And they're great at all of it. They're proud of all of it. They're never embarrassed. But after a while, we normalize, we educate, we routinize, we teach, and eventually they learn this stuff. They learn what it means to be embarrassed. I think some forms of embarrassment are actually good for the preservation of species. If you think it'd be embarrassing to go out on the highway tomorrow and play ultimate frisbee wearing no clothes at all at rush hour, that's not a good thing to do. That kind of embarrassment will keep you alive. But let me strongly encourage you in 2 areas. First of all, try not to let your fear of the disapproval of other people keep you from exploring what you are meant to do, uniquely for you. There are people in your life that will tell you, you're doing something stupid all the time. You can listen to them or you cannot listen to them. Don't let other people influence who you're meant to be. Figure that out. Work for it. Find people that help you become that person you want to be. And second, try not to let the fear of failure cause you to fail because you're afraid. Gosh, I don't know anybody that's successful that has not failed multiple times, sometimes spectacularly. When we fail at something, we learn something really important. We learn it's not final. We learn that winning isn't everything. We learn that I can grow and I can develop. I'm so proud of every person in this room because you're in a position to become who you're meant to be. The mentorship you're surrounded with is the best you'll ever have. I was able to tell my DSL that and my student manager that in great detail this last year. Be that person to someone else. Be that person to someone else. And the best way to do that is to first be that person to yourself. I'm so excited for all of you. So excited for all of you. Your emotions are going to get crushed, mangled, and changed in many directions. And from that, you're going to become stronger, richer, sweeter, deeper, even more amazing people than you are today. God bless you all. Thank you for being here. Thanks, guys.